Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here, and I'm a bit late to the party but wanted to talk the recently revealed Norden 901, which looks kind of like a restyled KTM 890 Adventure. Now KTM styling tends to be polarizing with the fairly futuristic theme, and adventure bikes I'd say are also a segment where you're just less likely to see people talking about motorcycle art. Sure, some people love their ADVs, but it's not like those bikes which make even non-riders go slack-jawed and drool a bit about. We've also had Norden 901 pricing confirmed for the USA, starting at $13,999 MSRP, which sits above the 890 Adventure standard at $13,099 and just below the 890 Adventure R, which has an MSRP of $14,199. UK pricing hasn't been released in comparison, while some sources are quoting $25,050 right away here in Australia, which is about $450 cheaper than the 890 Adventure R currently. In essence, the Norden 901 offers a very different approach, with a front fairing that's a bit more touring inspired than the more naked bike KTM ADVs, and I reckon it looks good. My first thought seeing it was that this was like a bike IKEA would have designed, which isn't a criticism. Anyway, so I dragged the spec sheet of the Norden 901 across for a comparison to the 890 Adventure and 890 Adventure R, and there are some noticeable differences beyond just the styling. The differences, they start with the suspension on the 901, which is WP Apex USD 43mm forks with compression and rebound damping. That's a step up from the WP loadout on the standard 890 Adventure, offering more adjustability and more travel, but a step down from the fully adjustable WP Xplor 48mm units seen on the top spec Adventure R. It's a similar story at the rear, with the WP Apex monoshock more closely aligning with the standard 890 shock, offering preload and rebound adjustment, albeit with more travel at 215mm. Where the Adventure R runs a higher end WP Xplor shock in comparison. We also see tubeless wire-spoke aluminium wheels with a 21-inch front and 18-inch rear, which again aligns with the 890 Adventure, while Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR rubber is standard fitment and is a good all-round option. There's a slight variance in the steering head angle too, up 1/10 of a degree from the 890 Adventure and 5/10 up on the Adventure R, while we also see some slight variance with the trail between models, with the Norden sitting at 106.9mm. The wheelbase is also fractionally longer than the standard 890, but still 15mm shorter than the R, with ground clearance a similar story, sitting at 252mm on the Norden, which is a generous amount. The Norden 901 runs a taller seat height than the 890 Adventure, adjustable between 854 and 874mm, where the 890 Adventure goes as low as 830mm, and the Adventure R in comparison is all the way up at 880mm. Another point of difference is the slightly smaller tank at 19 litres compared to the 20 litres boasted on both the 890s, while the weight figures provided is 204 kilos without fuel, making the Norden 8 kilos heavier than the KTM 890s. Range is quoted as up to 400 kilometers regardless, and the tank design is as we've seen on the KTMs, moved in front of the rider's knees and also run alongside the engine right down the bike, lowering that centre of gravity. This helps give the 890, and no doubt the new 901, the feeling of being a lighter bike than it is. The additional weight also makes sense, with the fairing setup being bulkier and no doubt adding a bit of unavoidable weight to the bike overall. The Norden 901 boasts the same brake loadout listed for the 890s, with radial mount 4-piston calipers on dual 320mm rotors at the front and a 2-piston rear floating caliper on 260mm rotor. The big difference there is that the 901 will run Husqvarna branded calipers, where the KTMs are fitted with Brembo. Journo is the manufacturer of those Husqvarna calipers, and they are a Spanish brake manufacturer which is becoming increasingly popular. Their braided lines were fitted to my Daytona 675R back in 2013 for reference, while Brembo actually acquired them this year in 2021, with factories located in both Spain and China. Common features include the parallel twin double overhead cam 889cc power plant producing 105 ponies or 77 kilowatts of power, while torque is listed at 100 Newton meters at 6,500 RPM. The DKK Delorto 46mm throttle body is shared with those 890 models, with no difference in primary drive or final drive to the KTMs. The Pasch cable-operated slipper clutch also remains, and Bosch provide the EMS and ride-by-wire systems. Electronics include 3 ride modes, with an optional extra Explorer mode described as being capable of catering for any circumstance a Norden 901 rider may encounter, which basically boils down to being able to fine-tune the cornering traction control system with 9 levels of intervention, a different display for the dash, and various other functions, which may just essentially be a user-set custom mode in practice. Personally, I don't really like to see software features locked behind additional purchases, but that's just me, and I am unreservedly a cheap ass. This does mirror the optional rally mode on the KTMs, of course. The cool thing about the off-road mode is that it allows a considerable amount of slip according to Husqvarna before intervention, and turns off the lean sensitive algorithm and anti-wheelie, allowing the rider to lift the front wheel over obstacles as well as steer with the rear wheel. In other words, if you want to have some fun, you don't need to disable all the electronics. The off-road ABS mode likewise disables rear ABS and lessens intervention on the front, while the system otherwise offers cornering ABS functionality. Standard fitment is the motor slip regulation system, which controls engine braking, while cruise control is also standard fitment, which is nice to see and expected on a premium machine. To take advantage of the Ride Husqvarna motorcycle system, you will however need an optional connectivity unit for say music functions or turn-by-turn navigation with phone syncing. What is standard is the easy shift system, which allows up and down shifts without the clutch, and this can be deactivated, and is essentially a different name for a bi-directional quick shifter. Other features Husqvarna have highlighted is the forged aluminium triple clamps and aluminium tapered bars with 6-position adjustment in a range of 30mm from front to rear, while footrest holders are forged aluminium with cast steel footrests, ideal for both seated riding and standing on the pegs with removable rubber inserts. The seat is also a 2-piece unit with 2 heights to choose from, as mentioned, and is designed to be narrow at the front, offsetting somewhat the relatively high seating position. Handguards are also standard fitment, as is a 12-volt connector, while the headlight is an LED unit and dual fog lights are incorporated into the nose. As you'd expect, all lighting is now LED. A 5-inch TFT is also fitted and senses ambient light to control screen brightness, with a configurable shift light also there to be set up. Now obviously there's some decent differentiation between the Norden and the 2 KTM 890 variants here, while the style of the bike and how that transfers across to wind protection and riding comfort will no doubt be a boon as well. There's a fair bit in common too, of course. While pricing being fairly close to the 890 Adventure R is interesting, there's little doubt for the hardcore off-roader the 890R will remain the go-to bike, but the Norden 901 certainly offers an almost middle-of-the-road offering between the base 890 ADV and the R model, and could well draw in those who just don't like KTM style, because as we've seen, it is popular and it has had great reviews. There's still a hefty gulf in price to the more basic Tenere 700 in comparison, while the Norden 901 seems more likely to compete with the Tiger 900 Rally Pro and even the larger adventure machines when you look at that overall loadout. Plus, with so much tooling in common, the Norden 901 doesn't need to be an earth-shattering success, while still offering riders an additional option, which really riders do appreciate. So what do you think of the Husqvarna Norden 901? Worthwhile addition to the adventure segment or too close to the KTM 890s? Let me know in the comments, and as always, stay safe out there and thanks for watching.